Well, welcome everyone. My name is Andrew Pryfogle. I'm the founder and CEO of CX Effect. I am thrilled to welcome to my bunker, Courtney Meyers, the co-CEO of Omni Interactions. Courtney, it's really good to see you again.
Great to be here. Great to meet everyone. So excited to do this.
Yeah, indeed. You know, we've titled this thing finally a BPO that you can count on. You guys have a really unique approach to the outsourced labor market for contact centers, and I'm excited to kind of talk through it and understand why it's different and be able to explain to our customers how they might be thinking differently about this whole idea of a flexible work model and flexible, kind of fractionalized shift and so forth. It's a very different approach to traditional BPOs. Before we do that, let's just jump into just a quick intro on yourself and maybe a little bit of your background.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I'm Courtney Meyers. I'm the co-CEO here at Omni, and I've been with Omni since we were founded in 2016. Prior to that, I've been in big contact center world, global, brick and mortar. And then prior to that, I was actually with one of the original work from home customer service companies called Alpine Access. And that was kind of where I started my career in this industry. So most of the Omni leadership team has been in the kind of the specific work from home space for 15, 20 years at this point, back when we had to dial into a copper, you had to have a copper phone line that you dialed into a switch to connect into everything. So kind of back all the way back then. So prior to that, I was a medic in the Army. So I made a huge career jump from medic in the Army to customer service. But it's been a great journey and excited to share more about that with everyone.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Appropriate to thank you for your service, especially this just a couple days after Veterans Day. Well, that's really cool. You've got some really interesting background. Tell me, why is it? What inspired you guys to start Omni Interactions? What was the kind of the business problem you were addressing, the gap in the market that you feel like you guys were addressing?
Great question. So, we've all been around, like I said, we've all been around this block of, kind of the work at home employee model. And then, ultimately the big global solution, largely brick and mortar. And we felt like there was really still a way to do it better, right? There was another evolution of this model. And when you look at the people that typically work in this industry as, as call center agents, right? It can be a challenge to try to figure out, how do you attract a better demographic? How do you, a lot of, especially as AI continues to impact this industry, the call types get more complicated. I mean, that's the reality, right? So the humans answering the phones going forward are going to need to have a higher skill set and need to have, different educational backgrounds, things like that. And so the question for us became, what do we need to do to attract better talent? Because that is the fundamental challenge in this industry, right? We can all talk about attrition, we can all talk about poor service, we can all talk about all of these things, but it's all rooted in the people. And so for us, we started to think, well, these were things we had, kind of starting to pilot back in, previous lives, we'll say, but can people choose their own schedules? Is there like why do we have to assign schedules to people? And do they have to be in these traditional 4, 6, 8-hour blocks with scheduled breaks, scheduled lunches? The reality is the answer to that is no. Yeah. And then, do we have to sit people in a classroom for 8 hours a day and torture them with PowerPoints? No, that's a distinct no. We don't have to do these things, right? So, when we start thinking about how do we attract a better person, well, the reality is we have to give them the choices and the enablement and the, tap into what they're looking for as an individual. So if I'm a semi-retired tax professional and I'm looking for part-time work out there, I'm probably not going to go apply to a traditional kind of call center business where I'm going to be assigned a shift and now I'm going to miss my grandchild's dance recital, things like that. So really what we did was, we just decided, let's try to do this differently. And that's been what's really unique about our model is we build everything in 30-minute shifts. Our agents actually pick up those shifts. We use a lot of automation to help people to go through and make sure all of those shifts get filled. We run surge earnings when they're not. I mean, so we've gotten really creative to make sure we can deliver this super precise staffing while giving the people what they're looking for as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So interesting. It's the way the market has changed, and perhaps COVID helped kind of accelerate this model, right? As people realized, for the first time for many people, wow, I can actually be productive working from home. And we're finding more and more customers of all sizes are embracing this idea of work at home, for sure, right? Where they're moving all their contact center workers to home offices, but just moving them to home offices doesn't necessarily solve the problems that around staffing a contact center. I'm curious if you had to kind of pick the top 2 or 3 challenges that a traditional contact center has, whether it's a brick and mortar where people are on a contact center floor, or even if they've pushed them all to home. What are those 2 or 3 biggest challenges that you think Omni is uniquely in a position to address?
Yeah, so I'd say first, it's this ability to be very flexible, and so and that's on an intraday, intra-week, seasonal basis. And so once you're talking about the constraints of a brick and mortar call center, the flexibility is almost non-existent. I mean, you've got the people that are there, and people aren't going to drive into work for an hour to help clear a queue, right? That's just not going to happen. So you're kind of stuck in this. You have what you have. In the work from home, I think the other challenge with even bringing the right amount of flexibility is, when you build everything in, let's say full-time shifts or even 6 or 8 hour shifts,
Yep.
you're kind of operating at capacity,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, right? So I've built my whole contact center structure where the rubber band is fully stretched. And so all of a sudden, when I need more capacity, I don't actually, well, theoretically, there's potentially other people that aren't scheduled for that day. They've probably already have a full shift, right? Or full schedule, I should say. So there really isn't any more or very little that rubber band can stretch. And so, one of the things we've done is we look at everything kind of from a 2 heads to 1 FTE basis.
Okay.
So, and that's post shrink, post everything, right? So we expect every head to deliver about 20 productive hours a week. But what that leaves us is a significant amount of kind of capacity in that rubber band. So when things happen, maybe another vendor falls short, there's some social media, something that creates call volume, a sale, an outage, whatever it might be, that creates unexpected volume. It's much easier then to stretch that rubber band a little more and bring more capacity to the contact center. And so that's on a day, week basis. And then you can do the same thing seasonally, right? I mean, really bringing people to the table that want to have that expectation, want to work those maybe different or unique shifts that are needed from a seasonal basis.
Yep.
And flex much easier. I'd say, if I'd say one challenge, it's that, because that's the efficiency, that's the cost. I mean, that's the service level, right? I mean, all of that kind of wraps into what I just said. And then the other piece is quality. That's quality, CSAT, kind of the satisfaction metrics. And I would say that's really driven back to, again, you're talking about a brick and mortar. It's whoever's in a 20, 30 mile radius, which,
right.
I think we've all seen these centers where they've probably every working age adult has cycled through the center at some point in their adult life. Right. And so that's an inherent challenge. Yep. I'd say work at home, the very traditional work at home model, just, people want to work from home, but that doesn't mean they want to be assigned a 6 or an 8 hour shift. So again, you're kind of excluding this huge percentage of the population that maybe is looking for a more flexible work environment. And those are often the people that have some really unique skill sets that are looking to work from home, and they but they need that flexibility. Maybe they've got small children at home, so they want a midday shift, or they want to work in the evenings, right? They're semi-retired, things like that. And so, just giving people that flexibility really changes the quality of the person you can recruit. What were you?
No question. I want to drill into that in just a minute, but before we do, this idea of kind of people think of it as gig workers or temporary workers. When we fractionalize shifts. And one of the big concerns I always get from customers that are hearing about this for the first time, or they're just starting to research this concept, right, is this idea that, well, how in the world do you train your temporary people to be as good as my full-time, employees? That doesn't seem possible. And I think one of the most powerful ways to answer that is what you just talked about, which is the type of talent that you're attracting because of the flexibility. Very, very different from the traditional kind of profile that we see of a full-time contact center worker in a brick and mortar, right? It's a very different skill set. Speak to that in a little more specifics.
Well, so I guess two things. One, we're going to go look for people that have a product, brand, affinity, or relevant professional background. I mean, we've got a large tax prep client, and we were able to find, for a seasonal ramp where we're ramping from 50 to 3,000, we were able to bring half of those individuals that have tax prep backgrounds, right? Which is really unheard of when you're talking about that level of seasonal flex. Yeah. Most of the other vendors, you can see the quality is very different. And we typically are number one or number two in TNPS, and we do a huge percentage of that volume. And so just starting with a better person means, we're just starting at a better place from, what is ultimately going to be delivered. And I think too, when we talk about just what is a quality, capable customer service person, a lot of that is built around empathy, just understanding, listening skills, right? These soft skills that, even if they don't know the answer right away, and they need to interact with our chatbot or something to get the answer, they're able to conduct themselves on the call in a way that ultimately leaves a person feeling satisfied, right? Even if it takes a little longer, if they're new, things like that. So I'd say that's the second piece, is just sort of this. We don't often talk about how important someone with life skills and those types of things are on the phones versus, an 18-year-old who's grumpy and frustrated and, whatever else the case may be. So, and then the third piece is, the nitty gritty of the content and the delivery. And so I would say for us, this is the piece we have to work really hard at. I mean, we don't want to put people in a classroom for 8 hours and deliver PowerPoint presentations, right? I mean, we want this to be engaging. We want it to be very hands-on. And so, for us in this model, in order to, the same person that wants to work flexibly needs to be able to, needs to learn that content flexibly, right? It's the same thing. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You can't say you need to sit in a classroom for 3 weeks for 8 hours a day, and then you can choose your schedule, right?
Not at all.
Exactly. It's not practical. So for us, we put a lot of time and energy into our clients' content, and we really try to make that into something that's very hands-on, very self-paced, and then build classroom blocks, right? Where all of the learners are required to come in and do hands-on role plays together, ask any questions, do debriefs, right? And that's where the facilitator is there to really make sure that those things happen. And all of these things still happen in a time window, right? It's not a free-for-all. It's like, training block 1 is these 2 weeks. And then after that, you've got your structured nesting. So from a client standpoint, it still functionally feels the same, right? It's a predictable schedule where we've got, classes with a roster that matriculate through, and then here's the nesting that we plan out with our clients' WFM. So all of those things from the client standpoint look and feel exactly how they would expect it to feel and function. But we're the ducks go swimming across the water. Everything looks smooth, and then underneath we're pedaling, we're rearranging, we're doing all of those things to make sure that it's a great outcome for our new team members coming on board to a client, and for the client themselves.
Courtney, the one of the reasons why you've been successful in doing this, and this model is really taking off, is because you've also invested heavily in kind of the underlying technology, right?
Yep.
That you're leveraging AI and other tools to be able to get workers up to speed faster, and to speed to proficiency is a really big deal. in this space, and kind of the ongoing, visibility of what's happening in the contact center, all that's built into your tech. Speak to that a little bit, because I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, great. So the first area of that is really workforce management, right? So, in order for us to build every single one of our client requirements or turn forecasts into 30-minute, ultimately 30-minute interval requirements, which turn into 30-minute shifts, that, we're talking about tens of thousands of shifts that we manage. And so we've built a lot of just behind the scenes automation around that in terms of scanning, constantly scanning those shifts against requirements, notifying the teams like, hey, there's still, schedules available from 8 to 9:30. Can anyone hop in there and pick those up, right? So all of that happens automatically. And then for most of our clients, we're sending, updated requirements looking 2 weeks ahead, or updated schedules 2 weeks ahead every 4 hours or every day, things like that. So all of that happens, automatically in whatever format our clients want also. But so there's a lot of automation built around that. Same thing with attendance, right? So we do the same thing every 30 minutes. We've got bots that are constantly scanning, the schedules relative to who's actually logged into the productive system,
Right.
texting teams, emailing, all of those things. So one thing we've really tried to do, this is a problem in every contact center I've ever been a part of, is the, kind of that first line supervisor or coach role ends up bogged down in so much administrative work.
Sure.
They're the ones kind of chasing the agents. They're the ones, following up on, did someone get paid correctly? So this person missed their clock out, right? I mean, there's so many things that role gets bogged down in. And so from a technology standpoint, that's what we've really focused on, right? We don't want any of our kind of first line coach SME type levels worrying about attendance or worrying about any of that. So we've tried to automate that, which then has really driven a better outcome, because it means everything's consistent, it's done correctly, it's done in a timely manner, right? So that's been one piece of it. The other piece is on the quality side, and it's the exact same principle. So, we build interactive chatbots for all of our agents that support our agents on all of our programs. And so from a speed to competency or ability to ramp standpoint, so when we put 1,000 people on the phones in a week, all of those questions are built into an interactive bot. And so from the first line of defense, I'll say, from a new agent needing to get their questions answered as they're taking those first handful of phone calls, they get their questions answered consistently and timely again.
Yeah.
And then we have all of our coaches and our SMEs focused on the pep talks. We call them walk to works, where we actually put people in groups and we literally, virtually walk them to work. And so that's how we found the best use of resources, is to have all of these kind of first line support people truly supporting the agents, not doing those, I'd say, more administrative or lower value tasks, right? So they're pulling agents off, doing coaching, all of those functions. And we've focused on automating anything kind of the lower value or administrative side of things. And that's been a huge boon from a quality standpoint for us.
That makes tons of sense. If I can free up my smartest, most effective kind of managers and supervisors to coach their people and spend their efforts doing that versus the mundane. That makes a ton of sense. Give us a sense of kind of perhaps the levers that a CX leader might think about when they're looking at why this might be a more cost-effective solution versus either traditional BPO or in-house staffing. This idea of a flexible workforce and being able to fractionalize them down to 30-minute increments actually can have a massive impact economically. Talk about what those levers are that a CX leader ought to be thinking about.
Yeah. So the first lever I would say is really just the efficiency of staffing. For us, you can send us, 30-minute interval requirements or even your forecast. And, we do this for many of our customers, during the sales process, right? Is let us just show me how you staffed the last 2 weeks, and let us show you how we would have staffed that. And the reality is we can be 25, 35-45% more efficient, because we're going to build every single 30 minutes exactly how you need it.
Yeah.
And then for us, we do historical look backs on dynamic shrink and things like that, so that we can be so very precise. The other piece is when someone's thinking about maybe needing a seasonal ramp or to increase that volume. I mean, we've really mastered the ability to ramp quickly. So, I mean, we can ramp thousands of agents in a matter of a couple of weeks because of all of these enabling kind of back-end technologies we talked about. And so that cuts down the carry cost, right? I mean, when you think about seasonal ramps and it takes a traditional vendor maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks to get up to speed, someone's paying to carry those agents. And at the end of the day, the client's paying for it, whether they know it or not, right? Directly or indirectly. And then there's always challenges with proficiency, attrition in that period before that peak season starts. And so being able to condense that ramp time has huge economic benefits. So whether you're looking at things from a, just daily staffing and making sure it's got the exact number of people you need to service the customers for that day, or you need that flexibility, either way, not carrying that extra cost is tremendous.
Oh, yeah, no question. I've seen a lot of financial modeling around this and kind of the comparisons, if you will. I've yet to see one that doesn't have a significant cost advantage by embracing this kind of a model. So that's really exciting. We talk a lot here at CX Effect about helping customers to develop an agile posture around CX, right? And when you speak about the power of flexibility, it's right to the core of that. If I'm missing service levels, from 10 a.m. to noon on Mondays, and the rest of the week I'm fine, but 10 a.m. to noon, that's where I'm missing service levels. The only way that I traditionally solve for that is by overhiring, right? Yep. And if I even can, if I can even draw people in, certainly I'm not going to be able to hire people for a 2-hour shift in a traditional model. But in your model, I absolutely can solve those gaps in service, in coverage to be able to meet the service levels that I need to provide the level of service and the level of the experience level that I need for my clients.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would just expand on that to say, maybe kind of that full-time model sits at whatever the base level of steady state, for the week is, right? And then you can use a model like ours to cover lunches, or maybe first thing in the mornings, or in the afternoon, there's a tail there where everyone else's shift is ended, right? So you can use it to layer on top of a full-time model and get, a tremendous benefit.
Yeah, and the inevitability of like you talk to CX leaders who pull their hair out trying to figure out, how am I going to staff the day after Thanksgiving, or how am I going to staff on a holiday or a weekend or a night shift or whatever. When you layer in the attractiveness to these really talented workers, these flexible shifts, suddenly you can solve those problems a lot faster than what a traditional model could. Yeah, really cool story. I'm curious. You mentioned a tax preparation company. We've chatted about that one in the past. That's a really compelling one. Is there another example of a customer that you've really kind of hit it out of the park with, that maybe even came into this with some doubts about this unique model and does it really fit, and now they're raving fans because of the problems that it solved? Anybody else that comes to mind?
Yeah, a few. I mean, I'll pivot industries and say there's a healthcare company we launched about this time last year, and they, originally came in small, kind of hesitant, right? Let's do a small pilot. I think it was about 15, 20 FTE, something like that. Immediately opened a new queue, a triage queue, and they have other BPO providers as well, and said, we need 300 people next week. I mean, the thing just went crazy. And we had that up running, 300 more people on the phones for them the following week. And so that's been a huge success. And now we're actually we're growing with them to a new geo, Puerto Rico. So they trust us enough at this point to say, let's expand and let's go to other places. And so just back to that flexibility, right? They didn't have another BPO partner that could move that quickly and actually add that many people, inside of a week. And then of course we've upskilled them over time and things like that, right? I mean, but we stopped the bleeding, so to speak, and it's been a great partnership ever since. So
I love it. Well, there's countless examples of that, and just one note for those that are wondering, you predominantly do this with onshore staffing, but as you just mentioned, you now have some ability in Puerto Rico. You're now expanding into Central America, so some near shore solutions, and opportunistically could even do this in offshore. Am I correct?
Absolutely. So, I mean, for us, we are, up and running in Canada, Guatemala. We do back office in the Philippines today. We're looking at expanding, that agent population to the Philippines because we believe there's a huge opportunity there.
Yep.
I mean, and then certainly our vision would be, kind of anybody, anywhere in the future, especially as it relates to language requirements, time zones, all of those things. So, but certainly today we can provide near shore, offshore, and onshore insofar as the U.S. and Canada.
Outstanding. Well, this has been great. I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the past couple of months and understand kind of where you guys fit. We're very excited about the relationship. Any closing comments for our audience here, customers that might be thinking about this?
I would just say, think outside the box, right? I mean, I think, our model is an opportunity to get creative and ask yourself, like, what if? Is this possible? And the answer is probably yes. We've done some really exceptional things for different companies that they would have, haven't been traditionally available to them. So, if it is as simple as like, Mondays are crazy, we can solve for that. It doesn't have to be kind of so complicated, if you know what I mean. And we can make this very, very easy. Great people, coupled with great processes means, we can stand up a solution very easily and tie it right into your needs. So anyway, get creative would be my closing comments. Think outside the box, because that's where we like to play.
Yeah. Get creative. I don't think people think creatively enough when they're trying to solve their staffing problems, and that probably is the most powerful thing they can do, because there's some amazing and compelling solutions out there. There was a question that just came in here. Can you speak to how you can do a test for a company? Like, is there, how you've done this in the past, what would a pilot, for example, look like if somebody was interested in trying this out?
Yeah, we certainly do. We do pilots with, kind of 10, 15 FTE. So that's very doable. Happy to do, we'll put our money where our mouth is. So happy to talk about a pilot, and depending on the need, I mean, we can do a little smaller than that if necessary. But I mean, we love the opportunity to just get our foot in the door and show what we can do.
It out. Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. So that was a question from Jim. Jim will follow up with you. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it. This has been fantastic. I really excited again, and thanks for that closing advice about creativity. So important. If you're wanting to achieve a real agile posture around customer experience, there's a technology solution. There's a staffing solution. How do you maintain that kind of flexibility? It's never been more important. So this is fantastic. Thanks so much, Courtney. We appreciate it. If you guys want to learn more about Omni Interactions, click here to learn more on Basecamp. Reach out to us. We'd love to engage with you and answer more of your questions and see how we can make this a customized fit for your business. So there you go. Courtney, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.